There's a truth most people won't tell you. You can't make a toxic person respect you by trying harder, not by explaining more, being more patient, or proving that you deserve to be treated well. In fact, the more you do those things, the less they tend to value you. What's interesting is this. The people who were once the most overlooked can become the most respected, not because they changed others, but because they changed how they respond. That shift isn't loud. It isn't dramatic, but it's unmistakable. It happens when you stop reacting the way others expect you to, when you stop chasing understanding, stop explaining yourself to people who were never truly listening, and instead, you start acting like someone who knows their worth without needing to announce it. And when that happens, something begins to change. The people who used to push your boundaries start to hesitate. The ones who dismissed you become more careful, not because you said something powerful, but because you no longer give them control over your emotions. And it all begins with a small shift. One of the most common ways toxic people try to control you is by making you lose control of yourself. They might provoke you, twist the truth, or deliberately press on your weak spots just to see how you react. And the moment you get angry, argue, or try to prove your point, you've already fallen into the trap they set, because to them, your reaction is the reward. But the moment you choose to stay calm, everything begins to shift. Not the kind of silence where you suppress yourself, but a calm that's intentional. You don't have to respond immediately. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't have to step into the emotional battle they're trying to pull you into. That calmness creates a gap, one where they can no longer control you. And that's what confuses them, because they're used to you reacting, used to you getting triggered, but when you stop playing by their rules, they lose their biggest advantage. Sometimes, your greatest power isn't in what you say, but in how you choose not to react. One of the main reasons you stay stuck with a toxic person for so long is the need to be understood. You believe that if you explain clearly enough, sincerely enough, they'll eventually see the problem and change. But the truth is, someone who doesn't want to understand never will, no matter how much you say. And the more you explain, the more you give them opportunities to argue, twist the narrative, or make you question yourself. Real power shows up when you no longer feel the need to explain everything. You begin to realize that not everyone deserves your explanations, especially those who repeatedly cross your boundaries without any respect. Walking away in silence isn't weakness. It's a very clear decision. You're choosing peace over trying to win a pointless argument. You don't need to play the role of being right. You just need to stop staying in something that's wrong. And when you can turn your back without needing to say another word, that's when you truly take your power back. Not everyone deserves your time, attention, and emotional investment, yet so many people give these away unconsciously, especially to those who drain them the most. Toxic individuals don't always have to do much. They just need you to always be available, always responsive, always giving them access. And over time, they take more and more of your energy without you even noticing. Power begins the moment you change that. You stop replying instantly. You stop explaining everything. You stop allowing someone to enter your space whenever they want. Instead, you become selective, choosing when to show up, choosing what deserves your attention, and most importantly, choosing who gets access to you. This isn't coldness, it's self-respect. Because when you stop being constantly available, people begin to recognize the value of your presence. When access to you is no longer easy, it becomes meaningful. And sometimes, the most powerful way to earn someone's respect isn't by doing more, but by giving them less. A lot of people understand that they need boundaries, but they make one critical mistake. They apologize for them. They say things like, "I'm sorry, but I can't," or "I'm not sure, but maybe." Phrases that sound gentle, yet weaken your boundary from the very beginning. The truth is, boundaries don't need to be softened to be accepted. When you say no, you don't owe a long explanation. When you decline something, you don't need to feel guilty. Because boundaries aren't meant to please others. They're meant to protect you. Toxic people will often test those limits. They might push back, apply pressure, or try to make you feel selfish. But that's exactly when your boundaries matter most. A clear, firm boundary, without apology, without hesitation, sends a powerful message. You respect yourself. And when you truly respect yourself, others have very few choices but to do the same. Toxic people are already used to words. They've heard it all. Don't do that again. I don't like this. Or, if you keep doing this, I'll leave. And yet, nothing really changes. Not because they don't understand, but because they know you won't actually do anything different. That's why words without action lose their value very quickly. The shift happens when you stop explaining and start acting. You don't need repeated warnings. You don't need threats. You simply follow through on what you said, whether that means walking away, reducing contact, or refusing to stay in an unhealthy dynamic. At first, they might not believe you. They may test you again, push your boundaries one more time. But when they realize that this time you're not backing down, they start to see you differently, because actions create consequences. And consequences are the only thing that truly changes how people treat you. You don't need to say much to prove your worth. You just need to live in alignment with what you accept and what you no longer allow. When you've been hurt, the natural reaction is to want revenge, to make the other person feel what you felt. But the problem is, the longer you hold on to that mindset, the deeper you get pulled into the same negative emotional loop that the toxic person created in the first place. Revenge doesn't actually set you free. It keeps you stuck longer. Real strength shows up when you choose a different direction. You don't deny what happened. You don't pretend it didn't hurt. But you also don't let it control your actions. You let go of the need to even the score, and instead you focus on building a better life for yourself. When you stop reacting from anger or pain, you become harder to predict, harder to control, and most importantly, no longer affected by them in the same way. Peace isn't weakness, it's a conscious choice, and sometimes the most powerful way to win isn't about doing anything to them. It's about no longer giving them a meaningful place in your mind at all. One of the biggest mistakes is thinking you have to be the one to teach them a lesson, that you need to say something profound, do something powerful, or make them realize just how wrong they were. But the truth is, it's not your responsibility to change anyone. And the more you try, the longer you keep yourself tied to them. Some lessons don't come from words. They come from consequences, from the way people live, how they treat others, and what they gradually lose over time. Life has its own way of balancing things out, whether quickly or slowly. Your job isn't to stay and wait for them to realize. Your job is to keep moving forward. When you focus on yourself, building a better life, standing firm in your values, and refusing to return to what once hurt you, you send a message far more powerful than anything you could say. Sometimes, the strongest response is simply that you're no longer there. After everything, you may come to realize something important. The goal was never to make someone regret hurting you. Because as long as you're still focused on that, a part of you is still tied to them. Real power isn't in proving them wrong or trying to change how they think. It's in changing how you respond, how you set boundaries, how you protect your energy, and how you choose to walk away when necessary. When you do that, everything around you starts to shift. Not because you forced anyone to be different, but because you no longer allow the same patterns to exist in your life. And one day, you'll notice something surprising. You no longer care whether they regret it or not, because by then, you've moved somewhere else, more peaceful, stronger, and no longer affected by what once hurt you. That's the real victory.